Rock is a world of powerful personalities, legendary egos, and rivalries as intense as the music itself. These rivalries fueled the music and left us with unforgettable stories. Let's dive in. Lennon versus McCartney, the post-Beatles breakup feud. After the Beatles broke up, a fierce rivalry ignited between John Lennon and Paul McCartney. What was once a friendship turned into a war of words, with each using their solo music to throw jabs. John fired the first shot with "How Do You Sleep?", a scathing track aimed directly at Paul, calling him out as a yesterday's man. Paul responded with songs like "Too Many People", where he critiqued John's ego and lifestyle choices. Lennon's lyrics drip with bitterness. "Those freaks was right when they said you was dead", taunting the "Paul is dead" rumors that haunted McCartney. Paul struck back with Ram, particularly in "Too Many People", singing "Too many people going underground, too many reaching for that piece of cake". It's subtle but biting, calling out John's preachiness. Though the feud was bitter, they ultimately made peace before Lennon's tragic death in 1980. But this feud reminds us how even the closest partnerships can turn to rivalry when greatness is at stake. Mick Jagger versus Keith Richards, competitive tension in the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, the engine of the Stones, but also its most volatile rivalry. Mick, the savvy, spotlight-hungry frontman; Keith, the wild, rock and roll rebel. In the 1980s, Mick's pursuit of a solo career nearly tore the band apart. Keith took it personally, calling Mick unbearable in his memoir, Life. The tension seeped into their music, giving albums like Exile on Main Street and Sticky Fingers, creating the gritty, electrifying Stone sound we know and love. Even in their hit Angie, the tension is palpable. For all their fights, it's this fire that's kept them together for 6 decades, proving that sometimes, conflict keeps the music alive. They know the Stones are bigger than either of them alone. This isn't just friendship, it's survival, and that survival has fueled rock anthems for generations. Kurt Cobain versus Axl Rose, the 1992 MTV VMA showdown. Kurt Cobain and Axl Rose were both icons of their time, but they stood for totally different things. Nirvana represented raw authenticity, stripping down the glam of the 80s rock scene, while Guns N' Roses embraced it, living the rock star life to the fullest. Their feud reached its peak at the 1992 MTV VMAs. Backstage, Courtney Love taunted Axl, and Axl fired back, telling Kurt to shut her up. Cobain's response? He mocked Axl's rock star persona, calling him shallow and taking digs at Guns N' Roses in interviews. This feud wasn't just personal. It symbolized the shift in rock culture, from the excess of the 80s to the stripped-down honesty of grunge, and it all played out in front of millions of fans, cementing their clash as one of rock's most unforgettable moments. Oasis versus Blur, the height of the Britpop rivalry. In the 90s, Britpop took over, and at the top were 2 bands, Oasis and Blur. But this rivalry was more than just music, it was a clash of cultures. Oasis was raw, working class, Manchester swagger; Blur was polished, middle class, and southern. The rivalry exploded in 1995 when both bands released singles on the same day. Blur's A Country House outsold Oasis's Roll With It, making headlines across the UK, but it didn't end there. Noel Gallagher famously wished Blur would catch AIDS and die, sparking national outrage. Both bands thrived on the competition, releasing some of Britpop's biggest hits like Oasis's What's the Story, Morning Glory, and Blur's The Great Escape. Oasis versus Blur wasn't just music, it was a cultural showdown, an era-defining battle for British rock supremacy. Roger Waters versus David Gilmour, the Pink Floyd power struggle. Roger Waters and David Gilmour created masterpieces together, like The Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, but their rivalry escalated with The Wall, where Waters took control, dictating the band's every move. By 1985, Waters left and declared Pink Floyd was finished. Gilmour disagreed, pushing forward without him, leading to bitter court battles over the band's name. Waters argued that Gilmour's Floyd wasn't the real Floyd, and both used their solo work to outdo each other. Songs like Comfortably Numb became symbolic of their tug-of-war, Gilmour's soaring guitar, Waters' dark, introspective lyrics. Gilmour disagreed with Waters and fought for the band's name, leading to a legal battle that would divide fans. Over the years, both have continued to produce solo work, each claiming to carry the true spirit of Pink Floyd. The rivalry is so intense that even reunions are rare and tense. Their feud divided fans, who still debate who holds the true Floyd legacy. It's a rivalry that showed how even rock's greatest partnerships can come undone when egos collide. David Lee Roth vs. Eddie Van Halen, the feud that rocked Van Halen. David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen were a dream team on stage, but a nightmare off it. Roth's flamboyance clashed with Eddie's perfectionism, leading to a split in 1985. Roth left, replaced by Sammy Hagar, and the fanbase was torn. Songs like Jump from 1984 and De Panama highlight the pure rock chemistry they had, but Roth's absence changed the band's sound forever. Even after Roth's return, the tension was undeniable. Their rivalry didn't just define Van Halen, it defined an era, with fans picking sides between Roth's energy and Hagar's polish. Roth eventually came back, but the old rivalry never fully faded. Their feud became the heartbeat of Van Halen's legend. The rivalry never truly died. It's a tale of ambition, ego, and the clash of two creative visions, proving that rock's greatest duos are often its most volatile. This wasn't just a band issue, it was a fight for Van Halen's soul. Jim Morrison vs. Ray Manzarek, the Doors' creative conflict. The Doors' magic came from the explosive contrast between Jim Morrison's poetic chaos and Ray Manzarek's structured, guiding hand. Morrison was a visionary, embodying the dark, untamed spirit of rock, experimenting with provocative lyrics in songs like The End, infamous for its raw, almost taboo-breaking imagery. Manzarek's steady influence is best showcased in the haunting organ intro of Light My Fire, which he wrote and played, grounding Morrison's wild energy with a musical elegance. This creative push and pull between the unpredictable Morrison and the disciplined Manzarek birthed albums like Strange Days and LA Woman, blending psychedelia with blues. Their dynamic was a constant battle for control, with Morrison testing the limits of performance art and Manzarek trying to keep the band cohesive. The result was an electrifying sound, capturing the essence of 60s rebellion and proving that rock's most compelling work often comes from the meeting of opposites. Neil Young vs. Lynyrd Skynyrd, a public back and forth. Neil Young's song The Southern Man criticized the South's history, and Lynyrd Skynyrd hit back with Sweet Home Alabama, calling out Young by name. I hope Neil Young will remember, a Southern man don't need him around, anyhow. But this rivalry was more nuanced than a simple musical spat. Lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Ronnie Van Zant respected Young's courage and songwriting and even wore a Neil Young t-shirt on stage as a nod to their mutual admiration. This back and forth showcased rock's unique ability to discuss social and cultural issues directly, blending sharp lyrics with messages that resonated on both sides. It was a debate played out on vinyl, combining tension and respect, proving that even rivalries could create space for understanding and dialogue. Lars Ulrich vs. James Hetfield, the Metallica power struggle. Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield were the heartbeat of Metallica, driving the band with a blend of raw creativity and relentless ambition. Lars, the shrewd, business-minded drummer, pushed for bigger tours and higher stakes. James, the passionate riff-maker, focused purely on the art of metal. Their tension peaked during the recording of Saint Anger, an album born out of personal and collective struggles, with arguments so fierce they nearly broke the band apart. But that struggle fueled their most iconic work, like Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, and Enter Sandman. Metallica's story proves that great music often comes from great conflict, ensuring their legendary status. The Beatles vs. the Rolling Stones, a friendly rival. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones dominated the 60s rock scene, engaging in a rivalry that fueled creativity rather than conflict. The Beatles were polished and experimental, pushing musical boundaries with albums like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which redefined rock's artistic potential. The Stones countered with their own daring work, like their Satanic Majesty's Request, embracing psychedelia while maintaining their rebellious edge. While the Beatles charmed with tracks like Let It Be, the Stones electrified with gritty anthems like Let It Bleed and Paint It Black. Their rivalry was less about animosity and more about challenging each other to go further, inspiring classics that would forever change the music landscape. These rivalries didn't just create tension, they created rock history. Every feud fueled the music, from Lennon versus McCartney's lyrical warfare to the battle for Britpop supremacy. Rivalries remind us that rock isn't just about harmony. It's about fire, passion, and intensity. Which rivalry surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more rock stories, hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover more tales from the world of music.